Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Talk Soccer to Me podcast, an American soccer fan's perspective on everything that's happening in European and international soccer, hosted by yours truly, Jack Alt. Today is November 6th. It is a Thursday. We're one day late. Technical issues. My sincerest apologies. Before we get into the show, make sure to follow Talk Soccer to Me on all social media and streaming services. It's at Talk Soccer to Me on Twitter and TikTok, at Talk Soccer to Me podcast on Instagram. To listen again, this show is listed on Spotify, Amazon Podcasts, and Apple Podcasts. We're looking to get a Discord page up and running in the next few days. Links should be in the bios of whatever podcast service you are using. For any first-time listeners, I just want to express what this show is all about. If you're a fan of English and European soccer like I am, a lot of the media that is to be consumed is a mess. There is hyperfixation on hypotheticals, like constantly arguing who's the best left back in the world or Premier League all-time 11. And there's also a glorification of the past at the expense of the modern game, basically putting former teams and players on such a pedestal that nobody in the modern game shall ever compare, and just a sea of shocking hot takes. Now, not everyone's bad. There's good in the world. I'm a fan of certain, the CBS Champions League crew, Gabriel Marcotti at ESPN, but outside of them, there's just a lot on like Twitter and TikTok and YouTube that just focuses on stuff that frankly does not interest me. So I have a show here that tries to do what I desired out of a soccer show, and there's three things. Take a game, give an introduction to the game, give a recap of the game, and some post-game analysis. Nothing crazy, just what's going on in the most recent round of matches. I hope you all enjoy it. Let's get into it. Last week, the first round of anything to talk about was the Carabao Cup. The Carabao Cup is a tournament that I've always had mixed feelings about. The English League Cup, if you're not familiar with the sponsorship of the sponsorship name, it doesn't matter. I don't know. I mean, there's plenty of examples of bigger teams not taking it seriously. But if you look at Newcastle last year and their celebration for winning their first trophy in 50 plus years, that was pretty cool. So I have mixed feelings about it. And the first of the two Carabao Cup matchups that we're going to talk about on the show was Liverpool hosting Crystal Palace. Liverpool came out of this game in a very rotated lineup. I have no idea who anyone on the bench was, and I think unless you keep a pretty close look on Liverpool's academy, you won't know them either. Palace came out significantly stronger, way stronger, more similar to their starting 11 you'd see on a Premier League weekend. And the game kind of took a minute to get going. Rio Ngumoa was lively for Liverpool in the right wing, really the only player creating anything in the first half hour, but it was Palace who would have the breakthrough. Milos Kerkez lost the ball trying to attack for Liverpool. Nothing crazy. He was being brave going forward. Palace then took possession. They were maintaining possession. Daichi Kamada sent a ball forward, looking for Daniel Munoz, but it fell right to Ismail Sarr, whose first time was out of the reach of Liverpool keeper Freddie Woodman. Sarr would get his double 3 minutes later. It was just a few crisp passes. Then Yeremy Pino played a 1-2 with Sarr. Really wonderful passing by both of them. And Sarr finished calmly. In the second half, there was a red card. Liverpool substitute Amara Niallo got a red card after giving the ball away poorly and then had to stop the one-on-one. That's his second red card in 2 appearances for Liverpool. Yeremy Pino, who was class in the first half, got a goal in the 88th minute as Palace advanced to the quarterfinals. I originally didn't have this game to be talked about, but the negative reaction towards Liverpool and Arne Slot following this loss by big soccer media is worth mentioning. It appears that the main criticisms were Liverpool were too heavily rotated and Slot should have taken the Carabao Cup more seriously. And I kind of disagree with big soccer media on this one. I can't bring myself to care about the Carabao Cup. So when I look at Liverpool, I like the chances they're given to young players. I like that they rotated their starters. I mean, I guess there's an argument that Slot needed to read the room, and since Liverpool were in such poor league form coming into the game that maybe he should have taken it more seriously. Whatever, I don't buy that. I see the argument, but it doesn't make sense to me. I don't understand why this competition exists. Maybe someone who's English can explain it to me. Every time there's talks about fixture congestion, this is the first tournament on the chopping block. And I think any tournament or trophy where teams like Liverpool are willing to put out guys you've never heard of before, how are we supposed to take it seriously? I see the argument, again, but I really can't look at Slot's decision negatively. I don't blame him. I wouldn't put Szoboszlai or Salah or Connor Bradley in this game. There's more important stuff going on in the league. You got the Champions League going on at the same time. This is a pointless competition, and really, I'm not going to bash Arne Slot on this one. I'm going to talk about one more Carabao Cup game in depth. Again, I don't really care about this competition, but this game was interesting. This was a good game to watch. It had lots of goals and drama, fun stuff. So if you're going to make me watch a Carabao Cup match, I want them all to look like this. And that was Chelsea versus Wolves. Wolves have been having a season from hell, so they needed something to smile about. Chelsea with some decent rotation, but then again, Chelsea have like 1 trillion players. So decent rotation for Chelsea is still going to be a guy who like they signed for $75 million. And it got started right away. First goal was in the 5th minute. Wolves gave away the ball poorly. Jamie Gittins, he set up Andre Santos, and the Chelsea midfielder calmly put it away. Chelsea would double their lead again 10 minutes later in the 15th minute. Jamie Gittins, again, picking up his second assist. Went against his defender on the left side, got some space, crossed the ball in. Kind of a low cross, and it was a tap-in for Chelsea striker Tyreek George. And then Chelsea made it 3-0 before halftime in the 41st minute. Wolves midfielder Fernando Lopez gave the ball away right in front of the box after getting a pass from the goalkeeper. Wolves were vulnerable, and Esteval made them pay with a fine chip over the keeper. And went at halftime 3-0, but Wolves would open the second half scoring. Chelsea lost the ball around midfield. Hwang Hee-chan set up Tolu Arakodara nicely, and his finish was clean as Wolves cut the lead to 2. Then the lead was cut to 1, a long throw. They're all the rage. Took a couple bounces and found Wolves left back David Wolf, which David Wolf is a great name for a Wolves player. Anyway, Wolf was at the back post. His smart finish made it a 1-goal game. Liam Delap then got a red card for Chelsea, which was just really dumb. Jamie Gittins then scored a banger to make it 4-2. Just a nice volley after loss of possession. David Wolf made it 4-3 in injury time in the 91st minute, but it was not enough. Final score in this one was Chelsea 4, Wolves 3. So before I talk about all the goals or whatnot, this Chelsea red card thing has got to not be a coincidence at this point, right? It just feels like every game I've been watching with Chelsea lately, they get a red card. And it was so stupid. I don't know if he was pissed off or something, but Liam Delap was just headhunting. He was going at Wolves players, just trying to throw an elbow, a shoulder, or something. Which is it's fine, but that's old school, man. You can't do that nowadays in the VA. You go up, you get an elbow guy in the face, VAR is going to check that 30 seconds later. And there's reasonable red and yellow cards. Sometimes you got to foul the guy. Sometimes, you got to stop a one-on-one. You got to do something. But it doesn't seem like any of Chelsea's cards seem to be like that. They just get the dumb ones. But we'll talk about the game. The game was fun. The game was really fun. 7 goals. A lot of good goals. And Wolves showed a lot of fight. Though, I can imagine this season just continues to be frustrating for them. Probably best players for each team were Jamie Gittins. For Chelsea, he was class, 2 assists, an absolute banger of a 3rd goal. I think definitely a night to remember for the young man. And for Wolves, their young left back, David Wolf, was probably the best player for them. He was by far the best player in a Wolves jersey before he scored, and then he went out and got a double. So it was a good match. It was a fun, entertaining match to watch. Again, final score, Chelsea 4, Wolves 3. There were 6 other Carabao Cup matchups that happened that midweek. Brentford defeated Grimsby Town 5-0. Fulham managed to beat Wycombe Wanderers 5-4 in penalties after the game finished 1-1. In a all Welsh matchup, Cardiff City defeated Wrexham 2-1. Arsenal got the best of Brighton with a pretty heavily rotated side 2-0. Manchester City defeated Swansea 3-1 without having to use their main man Erling Haaland. And finally, Newcastle, the reigning champions of the competition, defeated Tottenham 2-0. So that sets up some quarterfinal matchups, which will be happening, I think, 2 weeks and the week of Christmas. Yeah, that's Cardiff City hosting Chelsea, Manchester City hosting Brentford, Newcastle hosting Fulham, and then a week later, because of fixture congestion and whatnot, Arsenal hosting Crystal Palace. And there was other stuff that happened this week. There was some German Cup, there was some French League, and there was some Copa del Rey. But the one thing I'm going to focus on was Serie A. They were the only real good midweek fixtures that was a part of the league. And the best matchup on paper that they were offering had to be AC Milan versus Atalanta. So we'll get talking about that game. They were showing lineups prior to the game, and the one thing that caught my eye, and I thought I had an understanding of Italian lineup substitution rules, but Atalanta had 15 guys on the bench. Milan had 6. I know in the Premier League you can have 9. I think Champions League is a little bit more than that. But I don't know, that was weird. It really caught my eye. American Yunus Musa, he was one of the 15 on the bench for Atalanta, though Milan were the team that got us started right away. In the 4th minute, Alexis Salamakers did well to win a corner, sent it in. It got cleared out a little bit, but midfielder Samuel Ricci shot from the top of the box, got a beneficial deflection, and it just simply could not be saved. Atalanta should have tied the game up in the 27th minute. Ricci, the most recent goal scorer, gave Milan possession away. Mario Palisic then found the center back of all people, Anis Ahanor, who shows why he's a center back because he sailed the ball over the net. Though in the 35th minute, Atalanta would get their equalizer. Atalanta's Europa League hero, Ademola Lookman, he received a tight pass in the box, had a wonderful touch to create space on his left foot, and sent a powerful shot at the near post to tie the game up. It was 1-1 into halftime. The second half was a slow, kind of tight affair. David Zabacosta for Atalanta had the best chance in the 85th minute. It's his strike from the top of the box required a fine save from Mike Maignan, the French goalkeeper for AC Milan. Classic Serie A match right there. I mean, really old school, cagey, low scoring, slow. Both teams just looking for the correct build-up. And Atalanta's weird season continues. Through the midweek game, they have 2 wins, no losses, and I went out of order because they have 7 draws. That's weird. I mean, it reminds me of Juventus last season. Juventus had 6 wins, 10 draws, and no losses through their first 16 games. And for some reason, this is a record type that only pops up in Italian football for some reason. There was a cameo appearance from the American Yunus Musa. It's good to see him getting minutes for the World Cup coming up in 2026. Back to the game, though. I mean, there really wasn't too much to report back. I think Atalanta is going to walk away from this one disappointed, as they were the better of the two sides. The deflected goal that they gave up is always going to sting, but there is some positivity for the boys from Bergamo. I mean, Ademola Lookman scored in his return. I know there was controversy of him staying with the team. There was a story this summer, but it was a strong finish to get it back in the net. I know he's coming back from injury, so right in front of the home fans, it's got to feel good. Again, final score, Atalanta 1, AC Milan 1. The other Serie A matchup of midweek that was noteworthy was Inter looking to bounce back from their defeat against Napoli during the previous match day. They would get their chances. It was Fiorentina who was traveling to the San Siro to take them on. Get the game started. Inter nearly opened the scoring in the 27th minute as their left-sided center back, the world-class Alessandro Bastoni, was playing pretty high up the field on the press, intercepted a poor pass, managed to dribble right past a few Fiorentina defenders, and it required Fiorentina goalkeeper David De Gea to make a nice save on the one-on-one. De Gea would actually make a few other key saves in the first half, and he was probably the reason the game finished the first half 0-0. Unfortunately for Fiorentina, it would not stay that way. The goals would flow for Inter in the second half. They came out peppering the Fiorentina goal, and the breakthrough came in the 66th minute. Hakan Çalhanoğlu creates a little bit of space and just sent a rocket across the face of the goal into the bottom left corner to make it 1-0. Peter Sucic then scored his first goal for Inter Milan. He had a defender all over him, shook him off, dribbled past another, made it 2-0. And then Mattia Vitti, the Fiorentina defender, tripped someone on Inter who was in on goal, and Çalhanoğlu put a penalty away to seal the game. This match finished Inter Milan 3, Fiorentina 0. A strong way to bounce back following their loss on the weekend at Napoli. Inter were in control for an overwhelming majority of this match. And if it weren't for some good saves by the legendary David De Gea in goal for Fiorentina, Inter could have had this one wrapped up by halftime. But that's a hypothetical. And in reality, Inter wrapped the match up after 90 minutes. I mean, there were 2 wonderful solo goals from Çalhanoğlu and Sucic. You knew the entire second half that when one would go in, a few more would follow for Inter. Fiorentina were absolutely invisible in the second half. They started the game off all right, first 20, 30 minutes, but then they just fell apart, and they really need to turn their league form around. Fiorentina, as of recording, are last in Serie A. They came into the weekend at 0 wins, 4 draws, and 5 losses, and their only wins this year have come in the Conference League. So clearly this was a team that is good enough to qualify for Europe last year, and they are seriously struggling. And do a complete 180 from them, Inter Milan, they're in the title fight. They're going to push and keep fighting and trying to get to Napoli. Napoli did do well to create some separation last week, but they're going to keep fighting. They're going to see what they can do. Well, the midweek is over. The League Cups, Domestic Cup, Serie A matches, we can finally put those behind us and get to our normally scheduled broadcasting, and that's weekend Premier League games. Saturday morning, the first one up was recently promoted Leeds United traveling to the South Coast to face Brighton and Hove Albion. Brighton looking to right the ship after 2 losses in all competitions coming in this one. Leeds were looking to continue their success. They got a nice win over West Ham in the week prior. Looking at the lineups, one of our American guys, Brendan Arison, started on the right wing. Though as the game got started, Brighton were the better team. They had several half chances, weak chances, until the chances just weren't weak anymore. Brighton had a long throw-in in the 11th minute. It was pushed out of the box, but it wasn't completely dealt with. Yakuba Minte was then able to thread a nice pass to the right back, Mats Weifer, after the ball was kicked out to him. Weifer then cut back, hit a cross. It lands right at the feet of Danny Welbeck, who keeps his positive goal-scoring rate going. It was a nice first-time finish, and I guess I will count that as a long throwing goal. Takes our long throwing goal count on the episode to 2. Welbeck nearly got his double in the 33rd minute as the rain was pouring down. Minta nearly had a wonderful goal in the 40th minute as he took a counter on all by himself and only missed the goal by a touch. Leeds United did not have a single moment of notoriety worth writing down in the first half, and I don't believe they had a shot on target either. And the second half started a lot like the first half, Brighton just being miles better than Leeds. Chances for both Jan-Paul van Hecke and Georgina Rutter. Brighton just kept going. Still nothing to note for Leeds. I was getting late into the game, and I was like, I have nothing written down about Leeds. Because every time there was like a little glimmer of hope that it would be a play worth writing about, I kept telling myself, no, that wasn't a good chance. I mean, I even wrote one down that didn't work out as an example. It was a long ball hit to Dominic Calvert-Lewin. It was like the 57th minute. He did everything right, kept the ball on himself, but he had 3 defenders on him and no one in support. And I mean, that was their game in a microcosm. They couldn't get anything going. 64th minute, Minte, who's just been playing so well, beat his man on the right wing. Rutter dummies it through his legs, and Diego Gomez crashed in the box to make it 2-0 with a free shot. 5 minutes later, Rutter then did all the work on the left side, and his pass-back goal was again to a crashing Diego Gomez, who got his second on the night. His shot wasn't perfect, but he got a helpful deflection. Helpful deflections are a common theme in this episode. I'll spoil that right now. And 84 minutes in, down 3-0, Leeds finally showed some signs of life. They had like 2 decent chances, but they were saved nicely by the Brighton goalkeeper Bart Verbruggen. And at the end of this one, the final score in the matchup was Brighton and Hove Albion 3, Leeds United 0. The last few weeks, I've really found myself impressed with this Brighton front 4. Danny Welbeck up front. He's got 6 goals through 10 league games, scoring like he's a young man. He's acting like he's 10 years younger than he actually is, though he's at the spry age of 34. Yankuba Minte played on the left last week, played on the right this week, and frankly, it doesn't matter where he is because he's going to do well, no matter where you play him. Georgina Rutter did well in his game, kind of playing in that 10 role, attacking midfielder, creating chances, as I believe he had a hand in every goal that was scored in Brighton on the game, with all 3 of them. And the last one on the 4, Diego Gomez, had a wonderful game off the left wing, though in both of his goals, he looked more like a young Frank Lampard, crashing into the box with ferocity from the midfield and scoring. And I said it last week when they lost to Manchester United, I think it was like 4-3 or 4-2, Brighton is not going to win every game. They may not even finish in a European spot, but they're going to do 2 things. They're going to entertain you and they're going to score goals. They fight. And they've got this fluidity that's just been there for years. It's overcame different managers, different players. It's just their philosophy. And there are other players on this team that deserve to have their flowers for this win too. There was stellar defensive play. They really shut Leeds down. Verbruggen, the goalkeeper, made a save when he had to. But it's the attackers that I loved. Leeds were there too. You just wouldn't know it. And this isn't a bad team. I mean, they're not sitting in a relegation spot, but they're just so incredibly dull going forward. They're not clinical, and Brighton really just suffocated them today. And Brighton are sitting in 10th after this win, while Leeds are a few spots below them in 16th. And yeah, I said Leeds isn't a bad team, but luckily for Leeds, they're worse teams. Because somehow, despite the fact that they can't score, they're not in the relegation zone. Next up on the Saturday slate of Premier League fixtures was Arsenal traveling north to face championship winners Burnley. Arsenal hoping to increase their lead at the top of the Premier League. Burnley looking to buck the trend of recently promoted sides going down. So in the early stages of this game, around 12, 13 minutes, Arsenal won a corner. And I think everyone realized this is set piece FC. This is who we're talking about. And it's something we've seen a million times before. A wonderful delivery from Declan Rice. It found Gabriel Magalhaes, which happens every game. This time, however, it did not hit Gabriel's forehead. He redirected it across goal with his foot, and it was Victor Gyökeres who was standing at the right place at the right time, right in front of goal to score an easy one for Arsenal. The Gunners were just leading the way in this game. Bukayo Saka then found himself with a one-on-one with the goalkeeper, which he really should have done better to put away. Leandro Trossard, a few minutes later, had his shot stopped off the line. It actually took two Burnley defenders to keep it out. Arsenal eventually doubled their lead in the 35th minute. Gyökeres played a fantastic long ball to Leandro Trossard. Trossard did what is expected of a winger. He held the ball up, beat his defender, allowed his teammates to catch up, sent it in a cross that hit the forehead of a crashing Declan Rice to make this game 2-0. And that's really just how they played out. Arsenal's defense is suffocating, so that's all I got on the recap for this game. That was a seriously impressive performance from Declan Rice on the weekend. It just felt like he was everywhere against Burnley. This was a Galactico performance, a $100 million man performance. He sent in the corner on the first goal perfectly. He then got his head on the second goal. In the second half, he was everywhere on the field, and it was like he was playing two different positions. He was progressing the ball forward like he was a 10 in the midfield, and he was making tackles and interceptions like he was a 6, a defensive midfielder. He was the man of the match for me. I think he was the man of the match for everyone else. I think he walked away with the award. And the rest of the Arsenal team, they did their jobs as well. Good game from Gyökeres, good game from Trossard. That Arsenal defense has just kept their consecutive clean sheet record going. I mean, what else can you say about them that hasn't already been said? Though I will say this game did not require as much effort as maybe some of the games prior. Bukayo Saka, he was probably the Arsenal performance that was below par, which is surprising. His clinicality in front of goal in this game was just below his typical solid standard. But that's kind of the beauty of the depth that Arsenal has brought in this year. Because in the past, with such a reliance on a guy like Saka, if he had a bad game, maybe Arsenal wouldn't have scored or done anything. But that just wasn't the case today. And with the win, Arsenal stay top of the league. They got a 6-point lead. Burnley, they're sitting 17th. They're 3 points ahead of the relegation zone, and they got to do better to stay out of it. Next up on the Saturday Premier League rotation, West London traveled to South London as Brentford took on Crystal Palace. Brentford coming into this game on a 3-game winning streak in all competitions, advancing the Carabao Cup midweek. Palace are actually coming into this game not on the best league form. We did have an American playing. Center back Chris Richards starting for Crystal Palace. He was the right center back in their back three. And Palace started this game off better. At home, winning some dangerous free kicks, though they weren't really able to put away any of them. They would get their breakthrough in the half-hour mark. Yeremy Pino sent in a free kick from close to the halfway line. Jefferson Lerma got his head on it, put it back towards goal, and Jean-Philippe Mateta scored with his own header. Another goal for the Frenchman so far this season, and it was all Palace. Ismail Sarr nearly got an acrobatic goal. There were other chances as well. Brentford finally got their first little bit of something as Mikel Damsgaard, their attacking midfielder, won a free kick in a dangerous spot outside the box. He then took that free kick, and it wasn't good. It didn't result in anything. As the second half started, Crystal Palace had a long throw-in, and they're all the rage. It comes in awkwardly, and it actually came off of a Brentford header into their own goal. Center back Nathan Collins with any defender's worst nightmare, and that takes our long throw goal count this week up to 3. Brentford would press on in the game, but it just was not enough. The rest of the game was a mere formality. Crystal Palace 2, Brentford 0 was the final score, and boom, 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 Jean-Philippe Mateta was in the room. His 6th goal in 10 games so far in this Premier League season, 8th in all competitions, and just a fantastic start to the season from one of the most underrated center forwards in all of Europe, in my opinion. I said it last week, I'll say it again. I feel like I'm constantly singing Mateta's praise, and it was just such a shock to me that he was not really in the center forward transfer discussion this summer. I think a couple teams can be looking at it and be like, why did we not try to sign a guy like this? You know, he's good. He's really good. I don't know. Maybe I'm just a big fan. Yeremy Pino, he kept his momentum going. He had a strong Carabao Cup performance in the midweek and then brought it to this weekend with another good game. Dean Henderson, he made some nice saves towards the end of the game, did what he had to do. But as the game itself we talk about, it was pretty one-sided. It took a significant amount of time before I thought to myself, oh, Brentford had a chance there. They actually came around 75 minutes in the game, and they were already down 2 goals. And this was kind of surprising to me because Brentford have just been in such good form as of late, but that's the nature of the Premier League. You know, everyone's good, and sometimes when you have an off day, your opponents will just completely take advantage of that. This win has Palace sitting 9th, and they're not too far from the European positions. And it's tight in the middle because 3 points behind them in the table is Brentford, but that also means they're 3 spots below them, also in 12th. Next up was Fulham hosting Wolves. Wolves traveled to London, last place in the Premier League, experiencing what I've been calling their season from hell. Last year, they were able to turn things around when it looked near certain that they could be potentially getting relegated. This year, we will see if they can perform something similar. The lineups for both teams looked about how you would expect going into this one. Like a few other games in the episode, the first thing we're going to talk about is a goal. It was a poor mistake from a Wolves defender. He was attempting to make an interception, though it allowed Ryan Sessegnon in on goal. Pass and assist would be picked up by the Mexican international Raul Jimenez. Wolves keeper Sam Johnson got a hand on the shot, but it was not enough. Just like that, Wolves were already down 1-0, and they would see their night get worse. Fulham midfielder Josh King, he saw himself chasing the ball in on goal. Wolves defender Emmanuel Agbadu chased after him and proceeded to take him out. He missed the ball altogether. I thought the red was harsh, in all honesty. I mean, I do see King was in on goal. It was pretty far away, but I don't know. Straight red is always tough one to see get called, especially when it's not like explicitly malicious. VAR took a look and the call was upheld. So, when it rains, it pours for Wolves. And that's no pun regarding them living in England. They just are having a really bad season. And shockingly enough, they went down to 10 men, and the next three best chances before halftime were all for Wolves. There was a counter opportunity where a ball was played to Bruno Strand-Larsen. He decided to cut back on the ball, but the problem was there was a lack of Wolves players up there with him. It makes sense considering the man disadvantage, and he probably should have just taken the shot first time. And then in injury time, a ball was sent forward. It hit the hand of a Fulham player, but the ref wasn't hearing the appeals, and yeah, he was probably right. There was probably no penalty there. Lastly, in the first half's dying breath, Kijana Hoover sent a ball across the face of the goal, but again, there was no Wolves player there able to connect with it. And the second half started, and it's all Fulham as expected. Wolves had that good momentum coming out of halftime, but at the end of the day, they were down a man. In the 62nd minute, Wolves believed they'd cleared a Fulham free kick, and as everyone was retreating back, a ball was sent back forward to Jimenez. His cross found Harry Wilson, who did a good job hitting a powerful strike to the opposite corner, doubling Fulham's lead 2-0 in the 62nd minute. Then in the 75th minute, a Sessegnon cross missed all the Fulham players, but it found the feet of Wolves center back. I have it written down Emmanuel Agbadu, but he's the one that got sent off. So my apologies. It hit one of the Wolves center backs, but he committed what is every defender's worst nightmare. Oh, Yerson Mosquera. It hit Yerson Mosquera's feet. It was every defender's worst nightmare. Put the ball in the back of the net. The rest of this game, it was over. I mean, Wolves were down 3. They were down a man. They had no chance to get back in this one. When it rains, it pours. And again, I'm not just talking about the London weather. I'm talking about Wolves and their terrible start to this season. I mean, last year, when they got off to a terrible start, they at least had 3 points through their first 10 games. This year, they've somehow done worse. They only have 2 points through their first 10 games. It took them 24 games to get out of the relegation zone last year. And will it take them that long this year? I mean, Wolves has not given me any hope that this team can improve like they did last year. They required a new manager, and that same new manager is right now on the chopping block. And he added in the fact that the recently promoted teams this year appear through the first 10 games to be better than their equivalents last year. So they're the only team in the Premier League that hasn't won a game. And I don't know when that's going to happen. Their next 5 games are Chelsea away, Palace at home, Villa away, and then they've got Forest United at home. That's a tough stretch, but it's the Premier League. So every stretch of games are tough. Maybe Forest at home. Forest are not up to themselves so far this season, but I could see Sean Dyche turning that team around. He has that new manager effect. Wolves weren't the only team that played in this game. Actually, Fulham did play in this game. Fulham were the one team that did play. Fulham were there too, and they did better. They did their job. They pounced on every opportunity that Wolves offered them. Plenty of mistakes. It was just a clinical win. Their opponents looked terrible, but what do you do when your opponents look terrible? You step on their throat and put them away. Ryan Sessegnon was class. It was a good win for Fulham. They're not having that great of a season. I mean, they're in 15th, so they could definitely use this win. Wolves, again, I've mentioned a few times, they're in 20th place, dead last in the Premier League. Next up on Saturday were 2 teams that I talked about that could potentially be Wolves' first win. Nottingham Forest hosting Manchester United. Manchester United, they're in a fine run of form. They're going in this game probably looking better than they ever have under Ruben Amorim. 3 straight wins in the league. Forest, on the other hand, have had a shaky start to the season. They are on their 3rd manager, Sean Dyche. They're not doing too hot in Europe, and they're sitting towards the bottom half of the table, which is surprising considering how well they did last year. Though I do have faith in Dyche to turn this team around. Manchester United came out in an all-black kit with yellow accents. Never seen that one before. I don't know if I necessarily like it. But the game got started, and there were small chances for both teams in the first 10 minutes, and that was kind of appetizer to what's coming. And spoiler, we had an exciting fixture ahead of us. Around the 20-minute mark, it was missed chances for both teams. For Man United, Brian Mbumo set up Benjamin Sesko with a perfect pass behind the defense, but Sesko's touch was just too heavy. If he just controlled it a little bit better, he would definitely had a one-on-one on the goal. For Forest, Nicolo Savona, he had a strong run down the right side, but he was unable to find Igor Jesus in the middle or even take a decent shot when he had loads of time and space. Amad Diallo then required Forest keeper Matt Sells to make a fine save in the 29th minute, and in the 32nd minute, I think a goal would finally come. Manchester United won a corner. It was a nice in-swinger to the middle of the box, and Casemiro headed it to the back of the net. Defending by Forest on that corner was quite poor, so it went into halftime 1-0, and when the teams came out, Forest, they must have been inspired by what Dyche said in the locker room because they wasted no time. 3 minutes in the second period, Forest scored a good goal. They had possession and they bodies up the field. Right winger Dan Ndoye does well to attract a double team that opens up Ryan Yates to send in a cross from the corner of the box, which lands perfectly at the head of Morgan Gibbs-White, who sneaks his header barely inside the post to tie the game up. And you have to feel for United because Amad Diallo was covering Gibbs-White as tight as can be. It's just everything fell right for Forest in that goal. 2 minutes later, Forest again have possession in a similar manner. Guys up in the box. Cross comes in from Ndoye. It takes a deflection that gives it kind of a looping arc. Igor Jesus and United defender Lenny Yoro both go for it, and when the ball fell, it fell right towards Forest right back Savona, whose quick instinct brings him to the ball before anyone else looked like a striker out there, and he finished it to give Forest the lead in the game when 180 seconds beforehand they were losing. And the game would open up from that point out, because United were searching for an equalizer, and when you look for a goal, you're also opening yourself up in defense. In the 81st minute, though, Man United would find their goal. A corner was sent in, it was cleared out, the ball found itself at the top of the box, and the volley from Amad Diallo was world class. He tied the game up 2-2. I think that actually the best chance to win the game after that was for Forest, is in the 89th minute. There was a sequence where both Callum Hudson-Odoi and Elliot Anderson had decent shots to the United goal, but they were blocked and saved. This game would finish in a draw. Nottingham Forest 2, Manchester United 2. I really didn't know what to take away from this game at first, and I kind of had to think about it. I'm not classifying this game as a Schrodinger's draw for Man United. I'll explain that later. And I think Forest, despite their struggles this year, are still a solid team, and they'll get right under Sean Dyche. So my conclusion is that both teams will walk away from this game content, reluctantly content. I mean, regarding Manchester United, Ruben Amorim said in the post-game press conference that Manchester United would have lost this game last year. And I actually really agree with that. But I do believe this is an improved Man United. I like the way Mbumo's playing. I like the way Cunha's playing. And I do believe the chances will start falling in their favor, especially as their chemistry with Bruno Fernandes grows. And you put good guys in front of Bruno Fernandes, he's going to make things happen. Fernandes is one of the most underrated, and yes, I said underrated players in the Premier League. Obviously, United would like the 3 points, but it's hard to win away from home in the Premier League, and they'll take the point. Forest will also walk away with several positives, despite not winning at home. For starters, they actually scored goals and were dangerous on the attack, and that is something that plagued them when Ange Postecoglou took over this team. They still are tied for the worst goal-scoring output in the Premier League, so if that's the biggest issue they need to address, and they score 2 goals at home, that's a step in the right direction. They also can't defend a corner to save their life, though I'm confident that Sean Dyche has that in his bag to help them with that. The draw at the end of the day sees Nottingham Forest sit 19th in the Premier League, in the thick of the relegation zone, so they got to turn things around. Manchester United, on the other hand, they're 8th, and they're only a point away from the Champions League spots. Also, I'm going to mention what I said in the post-game analysis. Schrodinger's draw is an expression that I say for when a team is much better than their opponents, but they find themselves down 2 to 3 goals and have to come back to tie that game. I don't think that one for United fits the description. I think most recently PSG had a game like that where they were down 3-1 at home and had to come back. I don't remember who they played. Maybe Strasbourg? I'm not sure. But I call it like that because, you know, in the quantum mechanics, philosophical question, Schrodinger's cat is to be presumed both dead and alive. And a comeback tie as the better team is presumed to be both good and bad. It's good because you came back from a 2-goal deficit. That's really hard to do in soccer, and it always should be applauded. But it's bad because if you're a better team, you should never be down 2-0, 3-1, 4-1 in the first place. So in a Schrodinger's draw, it's always presumed to be a good result and a bad result. This wasn't one of those. But as we come across this season, that is the title that I will apply to a game like that. Wow, so philosophical I am. Next up was a London derby, and in my opinion, one of the more underrated rivalries in English football, Tottenham versus Chelsea. Tottenham coming into this game with some mixed form, 2 wins, 1 draw, and 2 losses in their last 5 in all competitions. Chelsea have been in decent form, minus the only blemish on the recent resume has been that loss at home to Sunderland in the last round of Premier League match days. But Sunderland, they're a little sneaky this year. So I mean, can you really blame Chelsea? Yes, you can. They actually defended really poorly in that game, but it was a rainy one at Tottenham Hotspur on the day. Lineups for both teams looking quite strong. Reece James sitting in the midfield for Chelsea. I don't know if that's new to this season or if I've just somehow missed that, but that was interesting. The game started out slow. I mean, there were small chances, nothing crazy, though I would say Chelsea were the stronger team for the early part of the game, and their strength nearly worked out in the 30th minute as Joao Pedro found himself one-on-one with the goalkeeper, but a strong save from Vicario kept Chelsea off the board. Tottenham's counter a few minutes later ended up with a decent chance from Mohamed Kudus, so the game was starting to open up. And in the 34th minute, Jed Spence poorly lost Tottenham possession, but it did not matter as Tottenham got it right back, though they lost possession again, Mickey Van de Ven, and that was crucial. Moise Caicedo, one of the best midfielders in the world, he did well to keep fighting for possession after Chelsea lost it a second time. He dispossessed Van de Ven, and then he was able to beat any Tottenham players at the touch. He gets it away, puts it to Joao Pedro, who made up for his earlier miss, and Chelsea being the better team paid off. They had a 1-0 lead after 34 minutes. Joao Pedro nearly got his double as he was the end of a Malu Gusto cross, and Tottenham were lucky that Pedro's shot went right at Vicario. A foul on Reece James before halftime led to some fireworks. Rodrigo Bentancur was actually pretty lucky to only walk away with a yellow. Many other refs I could see giving him a straight red. There was another Kudus chance for Tottenham in injury time, but this game would go to halftime, Chelsea leading 1-0. Chelsea were the better team in the start of the second half as well. This time it was Pedro Neto in front of goal pressing the net. Jamie Gittins missed a nearly completely open chance in the second half injury time to put the game away. Joao Pedro was again kept only at 1 goal as Vicario made a nice save in injury time. And the final score in this one was Chelsea 1, Tottenham 0. I mean, at this point, would it be more beneficial for Tottenham to just want to play all their games for the rest of the year away from home? I mean, look it up. Their home record versus their away record is insane. How the hell can one team do so poorly at home in a brand new, amazing stadium compared to how they play away? And then you compound the fact that Chelsea have had a great record in the young history of the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. I think they've won 6 of the 7 matches they've played there. And you got to think, okay, Tottenham was just destined to lose today. And they sure played like a team that had no chance in hell. It was an absolute dull performance from Spurs. In the second half, they were down a goal. Down a goal means you only need 1 to tie. Only 1 to tie at home? That should be something achievable. No? No. This team had no spark today. Chelsea were miles better. Do I even want to say Chelsea played well? No. But they were still miles better than Tottenham. And frankly, it was the finishing from Chelsea that was poor. It was the only reason this game wasn't worse. And yeah, I'll give some respect to the Tottenham keeper, Guillermo Vicario, and a few of his saves. But if Joao Pedro or Jamie Gittins or Pedro Neto were just like a fraction more clinical in front of goal, this game could have been 2, 3, 4 to nothing. The win actually doesn't leapfrog Chelsea over Tottenham in the standings. Both teams are on 17 points, but Tottenham still have a better goal differential this year. I think they're sitting at +9, and that's 2 goals better net goals, I guess that's what you would call it, than Chelsea's +7. And that's the difference between sitting in 6th place and sitting in 7th place, as both these teams have eyes on Champions League spots. The final game on Saturday was between 2 teams with very different league forms coming in this one. Liverpool had lost their last 4 Premier League matchups despite their strong start. Aston Villa had won their last 3 in the Premier League, including impressive wins against Tottenham and Manchester City, despite what Villa had, which was an unimpressive Premier League start. Liverpool came out of the game with a lineup that looked a little different. Ryan Gravenberch started in the midfield in what felt like the first time in a while. And I know Arne Slot, the Liverpool manager, has caught a lot of slack regarding his decisions with lineups and rotations. So we'll see if this one works out. And as the game got started, Liverpool's poor form looked like it may continue. 5 minutes in, Aston Villa's attacking midfielder Morgan Rogers cut on his right foot from the left and sent in a curling shot that beat the Liverpool keeper, Georgi Marmardashvili. But for the sake of Anfield and their fans, the shot rattled off the side post. And Liverpool, though, they would fight back. They had a quick string of passes in the 14th minute that gave Dominic Szoboszlai their first chance of the game, but his shot missed the goal entirely. Villa keeper Emi Martinez did not dive for that ball on the Szoboszlai shot, and he let it go past, and I guess that's why he was the professional, because I thought to myself watching, like, oh, that might go in. And there was just nothing from Martinez. I mean, he was right, But I don't know. It always kind of freaks me out. And like you're watching it and you're like, oh my God, that might go in. The goalkeeper just doesn't move and it completely misses. And you're like, all right, I get how angles work and perception and whatnot. Again, this game was a little back and forth though in the first couple minutes. Marmaradashvili was then required to make a big save as Matty Cash had a shot in the 18th minute. It took a wicked deflection and almost beat the keeper on his near post. And yeah, I mean, first 20 minutes was exciting, though nothing hit the back of the net. Slobosai had the best chance of the game so far. He dispossessed Pau Torres, but his one-on-one was saved by Emi Martinez. And in the first half, though, Liverpool, they thought they broke through. 43rd minute, Ekitike was offsides. It took VAR a minute to figure that out, but it was pretty obvious from even me watching the game. Though they would get their goal before halftime. Emi Martinez, the World Cup winning goalkeeper. I'm bringing that up because he made a huge goof. Huge goof. You gave away possession to Mo Salah. You don't do that. You give it to anyone. You give it to Mo Salah, who had an empty net. All he had to do was just pass it back in. Maybe a little more than the pass. But yeah, I had to bring up Martinez's trophy cabinet because that was just a poor mistake. It was the 250th goal in Liverpool colors for Mo Salah. And in the second half started, I guess that goal really just killed all the life out of Villa. Liverpool were the much better team in that second half period. They then doubled their lead in the 58th minute as Villa tried to send the ball up the field, landed right at a Liverpool player, Ryan Gravenberch. And then after no one stepped up to him, he fired off a shot that, with the right deflection off of Pau Torres, finds the back of the net. Villa would push back, though. I mean, after it, you're already down 2-0. Daniel Malin and Ross Barkley both came off the bench and were actually quite lively in their appearances. But despite their sprinting and effort, it was all for naught as the game finished 2-0 in Liverpool's favor. Words cannot begin to describe how badly Liverpool needed to get some sort of result against Aston Villa. They had 4 straight Premier League losses. They got knocked out of the Carabao Cup. And the online discourse surrounding Liverpool, specifically Arne Slot, was starting to get incredibly toxic. Toxic by Britney Spears toxic. But the soccer gods were on Liverpool's side today. And sometimes that's all you need. I mean, Salah will not score an easier goal. Gravenberch got a nice deflection that put it out of the reach of Emi Martinez. And speaking of the man of the hour, Mo Salah, give it up. He got his 250th goal for Liverpool. It's a truly remarkable accomplishment. He's the only third man to ever done that in one of the most successful clubs in world soccer. I mean, one of the best to ever do it for this historic club. He's one of the best wingers of his generation, one of the best wingers of all time. Him on the right wing will dominate Premier League all-time 11 discussions for years to come, though all-time 11 discussions will not be coming from this show. And I don't know what his future looks like with the club, but that doesn't matter today. What matters is appreciating the football talent that produced 250 goals for this club, has terrorized the Premier League, brought in 2 Premier League titles, because I think you could really argue that he was so impactful on last year's title. He's got a Champions League, he's got a few other trophies. Just what a player. But if we talk Villa, they're going to be frustrated with this game. They gifted the first goal. They were poor in the second goal. And they didn't play badly. A lot of the games we've talked about today, it's been one team just getting the job done while the other team played badly. Villa did not play badly. It just was not meant to be for them. They had good chances. They fought hard. But sometimes that's the way it goes. And also what I kind of noticed, and this is surprising with a Champions League game coming up, is Arne Slot only made 1 substitution. I mean, when's the last time you've seen that? 1 substitution? I mean, don't you at least want to, like, I don't know, add the time on the game? I don't know. It was weird. Just a weird little caveat that I noticed. But Liverpool righted the ship. They're sitting 3rd in the Premier League following this win. And that just shows how tight things are right now in the Premier League if you look at the table comparing the two, because Aston Villa are only 3 points behind Liverpool right now, and they're all the way down in 11th place. So a win or a loss can really fluctuate these teams at this point in the season. Well, that was it for Saturday. The Premier League moved on to Sunday, where there were 2 games for your viewing pleasure. The first one was Newcastle traveling south, as about as south as you can go in England, to the London Olympic Stadium to face West Ham. 2 very different fortunes for the teams coming into this game. Newcastle were doing well. 4 wins in the last 5 games, moving on to the Carabao Cup quarterfinals, while West Ham have been struggling. Their last 5 games, they have no wins, 1 draw, and 4 losses. And if we get talking about the game, the common theme that has been happening during this episode are early goals. Though I will say this one was probably the most unique, and I'll just explain why. West Ham were attacking. Jared Bowen, great player, scored in their Conference League. He scored the winning goal in their Conference League title a couple years back. He hit a shot. I thought it was going in, curled in, left Nick Pope, the Newcastle keeper, just standing there, but it hit the post. Fans got all excited, hit the post. But then less than 30 seconds later, Newcastle managed to take the ball down the field on a concise counterattack, and Jacob Murphy had a shot from outside the box that went in the bottom left corner. And that was just a cruel twist of emotions. West Ham thinking they were going to score, and then in the blink of an eye, you gave up a goal. I mean, there could have been someone who overreacted, turned around, been like, "Oh my God, I thought we were going to score," and then they look up and Newcastle scoring. But that wouldn't beat West Ham up. They'd fight back in this game. Jared Bowen, he had a nice run into the box, thought he earned a penalty, but it was actually a really good tackle from the Newcastle defender. He made contact with the ball first, so it got called back by VAR. Got to give the props anytime VAR make a correct decision. If it's there, that's what it's got to be there for. And West Ham were really just on the front foot with several opportunities. Lucas Paquetá hit the post with a free kick in the 30th minute, and then 5 minutes later, there was a cross that was sent in. It was cleared with a punch by Newcastle keeper Nick Pope, but it landed at the feet of Lucas Paquetá. He's really good at shooting outside the box, and that's exactly what he did. It was picture perfect. It barely beat Pope on the near post. The commentators were saying, "Oh, Pope should have done better," but I think it was just a great strike. And then 40th minute, Newcastle were looking to maybe tie it up. They had a decent shot from left winger Anthony Gordon, but West Ham goalkeeper Alphonse Areola produced a good save. Right before halftime, though, West Ham were countering. Right back, Aaron Wan-Bissaka made a nice run down the right side of the field. He looked to hit a low cross in front of goal. Newcastle center back Sven Botman slid, attempting to block it, and unfortunately, he beat his own goalkeeper in the near post for the defender's worst nightmare, in own goal. So just like that, West Ham came back. They had a 2-1 halftime lead in the second half. West Ham thought they were going to put it away. They had their third youngster, Freddie Potts, his father and assistant coach, getting a goal, but unlucky for him, West Ham were offsides in the build-up. And, I mean, just barely, a matter of 2 inches on the VAR report. But Newcastle, they did not do much to try to produce any type of equalizer. There was a long throw-in in the 94th minute, but it just had some awkward bounces, nothing crazy. And in the dying moments of the game, when Newcastle were pushing forward, having guys up, West Ham were able to hit them on the counterattack. Bowen and Paquetá played a nice 1-2, and the shot from Bowen was saved, but Thomas Souček was the first man there, and he was barely able to get it over the line, but that was enough, and it made it 3-1, which was the final score that West Ham beat Newcastle with. One of the common themes during Matchday 10 of the Premier League were teams that so desperately needed a win, and this game had a team that checked that box. West Ham United, they desperately needed a win. They hadn't won their last 6 games, and they have not won since Nuno Espirito Santo became their new manager. And what did they do on Sunday? They won, and they fully deserved the win too. They were the better team for the duration of the 90 minutes. Even when Newcastle scored first, it felt like it was against the run of the play because West Ham were strong early on. Jared Bowen was excellent on the day for West Ham. He somehow managed to not get his name on the score sheet. Lucas Paquetá, too, dude is a baller. His shooting ability from greater than 20 yards outside of the box is one of the best in the world. Player of the match for me. Feels like he's always scoring a worldy goal every few weeks. Also, you gotta feel good for the manager, Espirito Santo. I mean, he was fired from the Forest job super early in the season. That Forest job really seems like it's kind of surrounded with some toxicity to the management and whatnot. Now he comes here, picks up a win, his first win in front of the home fans. Newcastle, on the other hand, they were completely absent in this game. I mean, they really just sat on the back foot. They were quite uninspiring going forward. And I don't know, maybe the Champions League and the added fixtures is just a little too much for them and their legs are tired. But West Ham, with the win, they're actually still sitting in the relegation spots. They've got 3 points ahead of Burnley, or 3 points behind Burnley, who are in the last safe spot. Newcastle, with this loss, sit 13th, and what has kind of been an underwhelming start to the season for one of the teams that I think look better on paper in the Premier League. The final game on Sunday was Manchester City hosting Bournemouth. Bournemouth have been one of the stories of the season so far. The Cherries came into the weekend with the second best record in the Premier League. Manchester City are hanging in there. Not the worst start to the season, but not the best from them, or at least the expectations that I think Manchester City and their fans carry of themselves. And again, early goals have been on the rage, but that's what I would say if someone had scored early. Bournemouth thought they did that, but Eli Krupi's goal was very offsides. It would have been the first minute. He was 30 seconds into the game, but on replay you realize, he was miles offsides. And in the 17th minute, Bournemouth were pressing high up the field. A ball was sent up to Ryan Cherki, the Man City attacking midfielder, and he had a powerful header to Erling Haaland, who received the ball at the halfway line with no one between him and the goalkeeper. And that'd be any team's worst nightmare. And as you'd expect, Haaland sprinted away from any defender, scored his one-on-one calmly, scored his millionth goal so far this season, and gave City a 1-0 lead. And 8 minutes later at the Etihad Stadium, there was a sound of an eagle screeching. No, wait, that was an American scoring. Bournemouth won a corner. God, that joke was dumb. A ball was sent in. City keeper Gianluigi Donnarumma kind of weakly punched it, sent it straight up in the air, fell over, and Tyler Adams, the American midfielder, was standing right there to put it away, score his first goal in 4 years. You had to wonder what City were doing on that corner, not protecting their goalkeeper. He had 2 men on him when the corner was sent in, and not a single City player trying to stand in between them or pushing those players off. And 8 minutes later, again, City scored. It felt like deja vu to the first one. Bournemouth were playing a high line. The ball fell to Ryan Cherki, and this time with his feet instead of his head, he sent Erling Haaland through on goal. Literally deja vu. Haaland sprinted past the defenders, but this time he actually dribbled around the goalkeeper. He had a wide open net in front of him where he put the ball away. Nearly immediately after that, Nico O'Reilly, the left back, was in on goal, but he's not Erling Haaland. I mean, he's a good player, but he's not Erling Haaland. And frankly, no one's Erling Haaland. His shot didn't score. So yeah, City was up 2-1. Haaland had almost scored a first half hat trick, but it was a good save from Georgi Petrovic, the Bournemouth keeper. He was finally able to make a save on Erling Haaland. Bournemouth had the first chance of the second half, but Krupi's shot from close range missed the goal entirely. And Nico O'Reilly, well, he would get his goal. 60th minute, the ball was progressed to O'Reilly. Foden did well to shake off Adams, and O'Reilly looked like he was going to shoot from outside the box. No Bournemouth player stepped up, allowed him to take another touch, make it a little bit closer, and he rifled his shot into the back of the net. Final score, Manchester City 3, Bournemouth 1. I'd spoken in previous episodes that Manchester City needs to figure it out if Erling Haaland can get shut down or had a bad day. Luckily, though, for Manchester City, this was not one of those days. Erling Haaland had a good day. He got a double. Goals 16 minutes apart, very similar goals in the respect of what he was looking for, and that was a gap in Bournemouth's high line to where he could use his speed and expose it. Ryan Cherki found him both times in one of those gaps, got 2 assists, and Haaland's finishing is just sublime. I mean, he's the last person in world football that you'd want to face in a one-on-one situation. And this game takes his insane goal count to 13 in 10 games in the Premier League. He's got 16 in all competitions as of recording this episode. But you got to shout out Cherki too. He got an assisting double. It really seems like he's starting to come into his own for Manchester City. The commentators were making remarks about him replacing De Bruyne or being the replacement for De Bruyne, and that's unfair. You can't replace Kevin De Bruyne. He's probably the greatest attacking midfielder to ever play in the Premier League. So it's unfair to Cherki, but he's doing well. And Bournemouth, they've started well too in this Premier League campaign. But going to the Etihad against a Manchester City team, a team that really seems like they're starting to figure it out, and they've slowly been improving, it was always going to be tough for the Cherries. The American midfielder, one of our own, Tyler Adams, he got his first ever Premier League goal and his first for Bournemouth. I think his first in any domestic league anywhere in 4 years. You love to see that. We need all our American guys playing their best soccer before the 2026 World Cup. So with this result, Manchester City, they're second in the Premier League. They're only 6 points behind the leaders, Arsenal. And all it takes is one match week where City wins and Arsenal loses, and all of a sudden, it's a title race. Bournemouth, they're still sitting pretty good. They've fallen to 5th. I know 5th isn't technically a Champions League spot in England, but it's basically a Champions League spot in England with that extra added bonus spot. So they're on the edge of Champions League spots, and if they can keep it up, you never know. It'd be such a story if Bournemouth made the Champions League. I don't want to do one of those jinxes or come out and be like, Bournemouth are going to make the Champions League. But what a story that would be. Oh my gosh. The final match for the Premier League weekend was Monday Night Football, as they call it. They stole that. Sunderland was hosting Everton. Sunderland have been enjoying life so far in the Premier League. Back again. Everton have been having an average season. A mixture of wins, draws, and losses. But the last few years have been pretty rough for Everton. So I think this season's got to be like a breath of fresh air for them. And when the lineups were announced, I think the big difference in the lineup is the change up front for Everton. Striker Beto was replaced by new signing Tierno Barry. I was saying that last week because Everton's finishing has just been poor so far this season. I was wondering, okay, maybe they'll make a change up top, see if that makes a difference. I really don't like to shit on players, but Beto just hasn't been cutting it so far this season. And as the game got started, Everton were the better side in the first few minutes. 15th minute, Everton sent the ball forward to Barry. He lost possession, but Everton were quick to earn that possession back. Iliman Ndiaye, the Everton right winger, took the ball, took 3 defenders on, cut to his left foot. His finish left Sunderland keeper Robin Roofs absolutely flat-footed. It was a really good opening goal for Everton. And Jack Grealish almost made it 2-0, but his shot from outside the box hit the post 6 minutes after Ndiaye's goal. Barry maybe that center forward position is cursed this year because he missed a chance in the 27th minute that I just can't believe he did. He should have had an open goal. And it went into halftime 1-0 in Everton's favor. And Sunderland were actually really picking it up before halftime, and they carried that momentum into the second half as their captain midfielder, the man with plenty of Premier League experience and a Bundesliga title, Granit Xhaka, hit a shot first time from outside the box, and on its way to the goal, it wildly deflected off the foot of Everton center half James Tarkowski, leaving Jordan Pickford with no chance to make the save. Pickford then had to make a few saves to keep this game 1-1, which was the final score. A Tale of Two Games, written by Iliman Ndiaye and Granit Xhaka, is the fictional book that I would apply to this game. Because that's how this Sunderland-Everton matchup felt. For the first 35 minutes, this was Everton's game. They pressed forward with multiple chances, and they looked good. And then everything from the 35th minute on and in the second half was Sunderland's game. And I imagine Sunderland's going to be incredibly frustrated as to not have found that second goal after Granit Xhaka's strike that tied everything up. Everton were decent. They did what they needed to do. I still think the biggest issue plaguing them is finishing in front of goal. They've not been clinical. The new striker, Tiano Berry, he had an opportunity to maybe separate himself from the pack, and he missed just an opportunity that was an atrocious miss. Sunderland, again, frustration. You had the chance to put this game away multiple times in the second half. I know Jordan Pickford's a good keeper, but if they want to keep this remarkable season going, you got to pick up points. They're still 22 away from that magical 40 number that should keep them safe in the Premier League. But with this draw, Sunderland are still sitting in the Champions League spots. That's right. They're fourth. They got 18 points. Everton, they're sitting towards the back half. They're down in 14th off 12 points. They've got a nice 5-point cushion before we get talking about relegation spots. This result wraps up our Premier League weekend. We're now going to travel across the European continent, starting in Spain, where the first match we're going to talk about are league leaders Real Madrid hosting Valencia, with some added rest and definitely positive momentum following the El Clasico win. I was intrigued to see what Real Madrid can do. Before the game, Kylian Mbappe was awarded the Spanish Golden Boot. He led the 2024-25 season with 31 goals. That was 4 more than the closest player, which was Barcelona's Robert Lewandowski with 27. And Mbappe would actually get the first chance of the game as the through ball from Arda Güler was sent over the goal by the Golden Boot winner. It was a weird little deja vu. Vinny Jr. and Jude Bellingham then had near identical chances where they were on the left side and had their shots saved well by Valencia keeper Julian Aguirre-Zabala on his near post. A 15th minute Real Madrid corner kick saw both Bellingham and Mbappe essentially get tackled. So when it went to VAR, I thought to myself, I wonder what tackle will be the penalty. And it was actually a handball. It came off the head of Eder Militao and hit the hand of a Valencia player. So that's a triple foul, I suppose. The ref did say the reason for the VAR, or for the penalty that was awarded from VAR, was a handball. There aren't triple fouls. You only get one penalty kick. And Kylian Mbappe calmly put away the penalty with a shot in the bottom left corner. Real Madrid would double their lead in the 31st minute. Bellingham sent a ball down the left side to Güler, who was making a run. Güler sent it across, and with Mbappe in the box, Mbappe was marked tight, but his defender decided to go for the ball instead of covering him and missed. Mbappe's first time finish was as cool as you like, and he got the second of the game. The defender for Valencia, Copete, he really misjudged the situation there. I think if he would have stayed with Mbappe, he'd have been better off. Madrid were awarded a penalty in the 42nd minute as their left back, Alvaro Carreras, was tripped in the box. And Vinny Jr. stepped up and took the penalty, and it was pretty weak. It was kind of right down the middle. It was saved by Aguirre-Zabala. Güler had a little bit of a chance on the rebound, but it should have been another goal. Commentators and Twitter alike were both wondering, why didn't Mbappe take the penalty? I don't know. It's Real Madrid. You got to keep everyone happy. And before halftime, a long crossfield pass was sent to Jude Bellingham, who cut back on his right foot. He dribbled past some, frankly, weak chances from Valencia and sent his shot perfectly into the bottom right corner, making it 3-0 into halftime. This is Real Madrid at home, up 3-0 against an inferior opponent, so you knew it was basically a formality at this point. And the second half started slow. I mean, Vinny set up Mbappe in the 61st minute, but the shot was at the keeper. Valencia had their first anything in the 63rd minute, but Andre Almeida's shot was dealt with by Courtois pretty easily. And with the game essentially over, Alvaro Carreras scored his first goal for Real Madrid with probably the best strike of the weekend. It was truly wonderful. I hope you look it up. I insist you do. It was just across the face of the goal from the corner of the box on the left side, and it was just incredible. And this one finished 4-0 with Real Madrid over Valencia. When you sit down to watch Real Madrid in La Liga, sometimes the games are not going to be close. And this is one of those games. Real Madrid were on a different stratosphere compared to Valencia. And they achieved this beatdown without even having to get into a higher gear. They were just kind of going through the motions. And that's the risk you take as a viewer. Not every game is going to be great. But even if it wasn't close, the Real Madrid goals left you entertained enough. Their attacking play left you entertained enough. And outside of the penalty, the first-time finish from Mbappe was impressive on his second goal. Bellingham's strike from outside the box was a nice one. Though, I think you can kind of make the argument that a better defense would have done a better job on both of those goals. Regardless, though, the fourth strike, oh, baby. That's why we watch. That's why we watch soccer. Left back, Alvaro Carrera is as sweet as you like. Anytime you can shoot across the face of the goal, into the far corner, from where he was at in the corner of the box, and have the pace to beat the keeper who did not have a chance is impressive. It was a goalless goal. It was a magnificent goalless goal. And despite being not on the score sheet, Vini Jr. had a good game. He terrorized Valencia down the left wing. His penalty was just on the weaker side. And if I'm going to talk about Valencia, because they were there too, I might have to make some stuff up. I mean, they gave me nothing. I guess their negatives gave me something. They were indecisive going forward. They looked weak in the midfield. They were shaky in defense. Just a poor overall showing from a team that's sitting in a relegation spot in La Liga. 18th. Yeah, the defense was just terrible. I mean, it just seemed like they made all the wrong decisions. They stepped up when they shouldn't, and they didn't when they should. Real Madrid, they're Real Madrid. I mean, what can you say? They're still top of La Liga. They've still got their 5-point lead over Barcelona intact, and they looked good. Typically, when I cover Spain, I focus on the big three of Real Madrid, Barcelona, and Atletico Madrid. Occasionally, because they make good runs in Europe, Sevilla will get mentioned too. But there was an occasion this weekend that required me to break away, and that's actually, the game happened before the Real Madrid, so I kind of went a little bit out of order. But that was the Basque Derby. That was two teams, the best two teams from the Basque region of Spain, a very, heavy on identity, their Basque Pride region. Real Sociedad are hosting Athletic Bilbao. It's a classic matchup. It's one of the best rivalries in Spain, and I was excited to talk about it. So you had the red and white stripes of Bilbao versus the blue and white stripes of Sociedad, and it was actually Sociedad who would open up the scoring in this one. It was the 38th minute, a ball down the left side to Ander Barrenechea, who was literally limping. I think Bilbao defenders didn't take him seriously because he was hurt like a minute before, but he actually managed to get off a nice cross. And the cross found itself at the feet of attacking midfielder Bryce Mendes, whose first shot was saved by Bilbao keeper Unai Simon, but the rebound was put right back into Mendes' direction, and he put it in the back of an empty net. Though 4 minutes later, Athletic Bilbao would tie the game up. A free kick was taken quickly. Sociedad players were protesting the referee's decision, but right back, Andoni Gorosabal was sprinting up the right side. He tried to take it to the hoop, but the last minute decided he needed to pass it. The Bilbao striker Gorka Guruzeta put it away first time, a really good shot. And coming out at halftime, Real Sociedad would win the ball back from Bilbao. The ball was sent forward to Gonçalo Guedes, and his first touch to beat the defender was truly wonderful. A really good goal. Sociedad actually thought they made it 3-1 in the 66th minute, but they were offsides in the build-up. Bilbao won a free kick. It was sent in, a nice header from Yuri Berchiche, whose header nearly went in. And then Robert Navarro was there to put it in, tied the game up, and it went into the dying moments. Sociedad would win the game dramatically. 92nd minute, a cross was sent in and then went back both. It was really just crossing the face of the goal. Bilbao was not able to clear it. It found John Goro-Chekstegi, whose thumping volley won the game for Sociedad. 92nd minute. Real Sociedad won this game 3-2. And listen, I don't have some grand take. These are two mid-table La Liga sides. I don't have an extensive knowledge of their current teams and their form so far this season. But this is the Basque Derby, and it's a derby that deserves the respect. And it was truly one of the best and most entertaining games of the weekend. Both teams really wanted to win this, and they're really two of the more interesting sides in Europe. Bilbao, with their Basque-only signing policy and just their ability to be a successful team out of that, is just truly remarkable. And Sociedad has just produced so much talent that's spread across Europe in the last few years, and really just one I need to pay attention more. too frequently. I mean, that's on me, but it was a good game. And definitely one worth watching when they play the reverse fixture in Bilbao later this year. So what did the rest of the Spanish weekend look like? On Friday, Getafe defeated Girona at home 2-1. Villarreal with a strong 4-0 victory over Rayo Vallecano on Saturday. Atletico Madrid put away Sevilla 3-0. Moving on to Sunday, Levante lost to Celta Vigo at home 2-1. Alaves got past Espanyol 2-1 as well. Barcelona with a 3-1 victory over Elche. Real Betis dominated Mallorca with a 3-0 victory. And then on Monday, Real Oviedo drew Osasuna 0-0. The way the table's looking, Real Madrid have a 5-point lead over Barcelona at the top. Villarreal and Atletico Madrid are currently occupying the two other Champions League spots, with Real Betis right behind them, 3 points behind Atletico. And as of right now, the relegation looks like it's pretty tight. You got Girona, who were just recently in the Champions League, at the bottom of the league at 7 points. Real Oviedo, who just recently came up, is right ahead of them at 8 points. And then there are 3 teams currently tied at 9 points: Levante, Mallorca, and Valencia. But due to I think goal differential, Valencia are down in 18th place. I actually think the first tiebreaker in Spain is not goal differential, but it's points amongst games between the teams. I think that's where it differentiates from England. So yeah, that's Spain. That's Spain this weekend. But next up on our discussion is Italy. We'll go down to the boot. When choosing to focus on Italy, I picked the games out ahead of time, and I picked Juventus versus Cremona. One, because Juventus are Juventus. They got an American that always plays for them, and it's a big club, They got a new manager. They're not the Juventus of old, so it's always kind of an interesting story to watch. And for Cremona, they've got Jamie frickin' Vardy. I knew that transfer happened, but I forgot about it, and that's good enough for me. And Juventus would start positively for their new manager, Luciano Spalletti. Spalletti, a pretty accomplished manager in his own right. He's coached the Italian national team, Napoli, Inter Milan, Roma twice. It's been a top flight manager since 1993. Just a pretty reliable name in Italy. But yeah, again, the game started positively for their new manager. A ball forward, Weston McKennie, our American man, to Luis Openda. It was weakly cleared. It landed at the feet of Philip Kostic, and his powerful strike saw Juventus winning the game in the first 90 seconds. They were up 1-0. Juventus then had some other decent chances in the first half. Dusan Vlahovic got behind the Cremona defense, but his one-on-one shot went right at the Cremona keeper, Emil Aduro. Then in the 26th minute, Emmanuel Locatelli's shot got past Aduro, but it rattled off the post. It was all Juventus in the first half. It was really one-sided. Juventus spent most of the start of the second half looking for that second goal, and they'd find it in the 68th minute. Super sub. I feel like every time he comes on off the bench for Juventus, he does something. Francisco Conceição sent in a cross that was dummied through the legs of Vlahovic, and it fell perfectly to Andrea Cambiasso, who put it away. Cremona would finally have something going for them in the 83rd minute. A ball was sent forward to Jamie Vardy, who muscled off Federico Gatti, and his speed and finishing looked vintage as he put it back in the net to make it 2-1. But that was all it was, and that game finished 2-1 in favor of Juventus. Jamie Vardy had a party, but it wasn't enough to win the game. The former Premier League and Golden Boot winner got a trademark Jamie Vardy goal in the later stages of the game, just a long ball forward where he either muscles by or speeds by his defender, but it wasn't enough for Cremona. They fell at home to Juventus 2-1. Juventus, first win under a new manager, Luciano Spalletti. They were much better throughout nearly all of the match. I think the books had this game closer than it actually felt. And frankly, with all the opportunities Juventus did have, you're surprised they only had 2 goals. American Weston McKennie, he played well, looked good. Some seriously nice passes in progression. He was constantly in the box. He was a threat pushing up high. And I think I'd like to see him in that 10 role for the United States. And maybe in front of a Tyler Adams, Johnny Cardoso midfield duo come next summer in the World Cup. But anyways, after this weekend, Juventus are sitting 6th in the league, while Cremona, they're not far behind. They're having a decent season. They're sitting in 10th. A lot of draws, but hey, it's Italian football. Draws are all the rage. Next match in Serie A that we want to talk about are league leaders Napoli facing off against Como. Como have been one of the more interesting stories in Serie A this season. I always look forward to seeing them face one of Italy's big boys. I think this is their first match this season against one of Italy's big boys in Napoli. So I will save the suspense ahead of time. The game finished 0-0. The only real good chance of the game came when Como striker and former Serie A winner himself, Alvaro Morata, was fouled by Napoli goalkeeper Vanja Milinkovic-Savic. The problem for Morata and Como is Milinkovic-Savic is one of the best penalty-saving keepers in the world. That's exactly what he did. It wasn't the greatest penalty either. Besides that, the best chances to put it in the back of the net for the rest of the game were by Napoli. But again, though, this game was a little bit on the boring side of things, which is harsh. But I'm a little upset because I got my hopes up. I was really interested in this matchup before the game started. You got Napoli, the league leaders, wondering, they're coming off the win against Inter Milan, but they're now going to be without Kevin De Bruyne for a few months as you got that freak penalty muscle injury goal. And then Como, they're fun, upstart team, good manager, they've got money, they probably have the best youngsters Serie A has to offer, Nico Pass. So for this to be a cagey 0-0 affair, it was disappointing. I guess it is what it is. What are you going to do? Napoli, they're still top of the league after the weekend. Como is still sitting 7th, hoping to push on to one of those European spots. If you're not watching Italian football right now, you may need to change that. Serie A has what could potentially shape up to be the most interesting title race across Europe. Napoli are at the top with 22 points. And then you've got Inter, Milan, and Roma all sitting at 21 points right behind them. Now, logically speaking, just based off their rosters and how good the teams are, you can imagine that Napoli and Inter will probably break away from Milan and Roma, but I hope they don't. I hope it stays like this for the rest of the season. And there's a few teams that really aren't that far behind them. Bologna, Juventus, Como, they're all like one win away from being at that top. And Italy's different than the Premier League. In the Premier League, if two teams are tied at the top at the end of the season, whoever has the best goal differential splits them up, and then it's goal forward, and then you progress through all the tiebreakers. In Italy, if two teams are tied at the top at the end of the season, they play a one-game playoff for the title. I want to see that so bad. I've never seen that. I want to see that so bad. So I really just hope that this stays like this, and that whether it's Napoli-Inter, Inter-Milan, just something. I want to see that playoff title. I implore you to keep watching Serie A. The title race is going to continue to be interesting as the season goes on, and I really hope that one of Napoli and Inter don't pull away. I hope it stays tight for the rest of the season. I guess I'll mention the rest of the weekend games in Serie A. I kind of jumped ahead and talked about their table first. Udinese with a surprising 1-0 victory over Atalanta on Saturday. Sunday, I didn't talk about any of the Sunday games. GS Verona lost 1-2 at home against Inter Milan. Fiorentina, their bad season keeps going. A 0-1 loss against Lecce at home. Torino and Pisa played to a 2-2 draw. Parma lost to Bologna 3-1 at home. A game that I really debated on talking about, and I didn't. AC Milan defeating Roma 1-0 at home. Their second big win for Milan, or excuse me, not a second big win. They drew Atalanta during the middle of the week. And then on Monday, there were two games on Monday. Genoa defeated Sassuolo 2-1, and Lazio defeated Cagliari 2-0. And then I'm going to talk about the rest of the Serie A table, because again, I mentioned a minute ago, Bologna, Juventus, and Como are sitting in the rest of the European spots, with Lazio and Udinese not far behind them. Atalanta kind of having a disappointing season, picking up their first loss. Again, 2 wins, 7 draws, 1 loss. That's so weird. And then there's a decent gap to the bottom. Fiorentina sitting all by themselves with no wins, 4 points. JS Verona half a point, or a point behind them, or ahead of them, good lord, at 5. And then Pisa and Genoa sitting at 6. And technically, at the end of the season, there would be another playoff, because if two teams are sitting at the relegation spot with an equal amount of points, Pisa and Genoa would play a relegation playoff, which would be super cool, super fun. So that's Serie A. We're going to go over to Germany, where we had the two most recent German champions facing off in Bayern Munich versus Bayer Leverkusen. Bayern Munich looked pretty similar to their title-winning side from last season, while Bayer Leverkusen are a very different side compared to their title-winning season 2 years ago. Around 15 minutes in this matchup, Munich finally saw themselves really get into the match. It was real slow to begin, and they had several chances in positive possession, and Bayern would finally get their breakthrough on a quick counter. Manuel Neuer received the ball, wasted no time to find left back Tom Bischoff after a long throw, and I think on his first touch, nearly right away, Bischoff sent a ball forward to Serge Gnabry, who used his speed to get past several Leverkusen defenders, and he calmly finished it past goalkeeper Mark Flecken to make it 1-0. That goal came in the 25th minute. Nicholas Jackson was half a step from making it 2-0 in the 30th minute, but luckily for him, he did score 1 minute later. Munich right back Konrad Leimer sent it across the middle of the box, and Jackson was precisely positioned between two Leverkusen defenders, and his header was inch perfect to double Bayern's lead. Nicholas Jackson thought he would score again.
got a double, but he was offsides, and what would have been a nice counterattacking goal. And Leverkusen's bad night would only get worse, as in the 43rd minute, a cross in from Rafael Guerrero found the foot of Leverkusen's center back Loic Bade, who suffered a defender's worst nightmare as his deflection found the back of the net for an own goal. And just like that, Bayern Munich were up 3-0 before halftime even started. The rest of the second half was basically Bayern Munich trying to make it worse for Leverkusen, and that wouldn't happen, fortunately for Leverkusen. Final score for this one ended up being Bayern Munich 3, Bayer Leverkusen 0. Bayern Munich and Bayer Leverkusen had a league game last year. I want to say it was late February, early March, and I think the game was at Leverkusen, and it played to a 0-0 draw. But I just remember watching that game, and Leverkusen were in complete control. I thought to myself, wow, Munich got lucky. Leverkusen were the much better team today. I don't know how they didn't win. So less than 10 months later, Bayern Munich, who had some serious attacking rotation, were leagues better than Bayer Leverkusen. Not even close. Harry Kane, Luis Diaz, and Michael Olise were all on the bench. While it was understandable with PSG looming in the Champions League, it's just a sad reflection of where Leverkusen are at. And I do sometimes feel like I've beaten the dead horse so far this season. Like, yeah, everyone is aware that Leverkusen are not the team they used to be. I mean, hell, their best defender from that Bundesliga team was starting for Bayern Munich in this game as their best center back. Alex Grimaldo and Patrick Schick are the only ones left. It's just, I know, I need to maybe develop a different storyline for Leverkusen or talk about something else, but it's like every time I watch them this season and they lose a game, it's just kind of sad that like there's a certain class of teams in soccer that just will never be able to stay relevant when they have a good side. I mean, they're relevant. They're in the Champions League. They'll probably finish top 4 in Germany again, but they aren't a team that's going to threaten Munich anymore. But if we talk about Munich, their young German forward, all 17 years of age, Leonard Karl, continues to impress. He's really been letting the world know who he is to start this season. And I think the Bavarian Giants will be smart regarding their development of him. They usually take players that are young and they develop them well. It's always been one of Bayern Munich's skills. And a lot of times they don't lose those young players they develop. But with this win, Bayern Munich still have a 5-point lead at the top of the Bundesliga, while Bayer Leverkusen are 5th, sitting 10 points behind Bayern. The rest of the German weekend started on Halloween. Borussia Dortmund with a 1-0 victory at Augsburg. Heidenheim and Eintracht Frankfurt played a 1-1 draw on Saturday. Union Berlin and Freiburg played a 0-0 draw on Saturday. Mainz and Werder Bremen also played a draw on Saturday, this one finishing 1-1. Leipzig with a nice 3-1 victory over Stuttgart. Those teams going to be fighting probably for second place this year. Borussia Mönchengladbach went to St. Pauli, picked up a 4-0 victory. And on Sunday, Cologne defeated Hamburg 4-1, while Hoffenheim defeated Wolfsburg 3-2. If you look at the German table, Bayern Munich are 5 points ahead of Leipzig at the top. Leipzig actually having a really good start to the season. 7 wins, 1 draw, and 1 loss through their first 9 games. Dortmund not having a bad start to the season either. 6 wins, 2 draws, 1 loss to the game. But when Bayern Munich are a perfect 9 wins, 0 draws, 0 losses, what else are you going to do? And the rest of the European spots, you got Stuttgart, Bayer Leverkusen, Hoffenheim, and Cologne. As we look down towards relegation, right now Heidenheim and Mainz are sitting at 5 points in 17th and 18th. That would have them relegated. Again, Bundesliga is an 18-team league. And right now Mönchengladbach would be sitting in a playoff for a relegation spot if the season were to finish today. And then we're going to talk about one more league. We're already hitting pretty late, 75 minutes into this episode. And that was France. We go over to Ligue 1. I can't speak French. PSG, whose league form has been a little shaky this season, got a 1-0 victory over Nice. Monaco losing to PSG's neighbors, Paris FC 1-0. Marseille going to Auxerre, winning 1-0. And then on Sunday, most of their games are on Sunday, Rennes defeated Strasbourg 4-1. Lens got past Lorient 3-0. Lille defeating Angers 1-0. Metz over Nantes 2-0. And then a bunch of 0-0 draws. Toulouse versus Le Havre and Brest versus Lyon. A boy can dream, right? That we may have a title fight in France. And I know PSG are a phenomenal team. They have so much talent. But their league form hasn't been perfect. I mean, yes, 7 wins, 3 draws, and 1 loss from their first 11 games is a great line. But they've got teams sitting pretty close to them. Good teams, too. Marseille's only 2 points behind them, and they have the best attacking record so far in France. They're averaging well over 2 goals a game. Lens, who were kind of at the top 2 or 3 years ago, are 2 points behind PSG. Lille, who've been a consistently decent side over the last couple of years, 4 points behind PSG. Monaco, 4 points behind PSG. And Lyon, 4 points behind PSG. Conventional wisdom will tell you PSG will eventually separate itself from this pack. But I don't know. There's been years in the past. Lille won it. Monaco won it. PSG on and off year can be caught. They aren't as dominant with kind of a hold at the top as Bayern Munich are over in Germany. So I'm just going to be hopeful. I'm going to hope, I'm going to pray that we will get a title fight in France this year and that PSG will have to be perfect. They probably will be. Whatever. Right now, Auxerre, Metz, and Lorient are sitting towards the relegation spots in France. And we are approaching the 1 hour, 20-minute mark, which is a little long. I do want to apologize. I really wanted to get this episode out on Wednesday. But, I kind of started recording late Wednesday night, and it just was not getting up to par of where I wanted it to be. So, that's where we ended up. If you're still here after 80 minutes, I really do appreciate you. Again, this is Talk Soccer to Me. I hope you enjoy the episode. Please like, subscribe, rate on Spotify, all streaming services. Tell your friends about it. Tell your grandmother about it. And have a good day. Thank you for being here. I love you. Goodbye.